Welcome back to the Against All Odds, the Less Than 1% Chance podcast with your host, Maria Aponte, where we will hear stories of incredible people thriving against all odds. And my hope is that we can all see how life is always happening for us, even when we are the less than 1% chance. Hey, welcome back to Against All Odds, the Less Than 1% Chance podcast with your host, Maria Aponte. I am so excited to be here today to introduce this amazing lady that I met through a Facebook group. Her name is Kalsey Hartley, and she has a Against All Odds life, and I am so excited for you guys to hear her story and her testimony and how she guided her life to it having a purpose and a meaning that will help others. Kalsey, please give us a little bit of an intro, your background, and some of your Against All Odds story.
Yeah, I'm Kalsey and I'm so excited to be here, Maria. Thank you so much for having me. I love any chance we get to talk about this stuff because I feel like the more we talk about these stories, it just puts that good energy out there and people need to hear it. If we don't talk about it, we all just stay stuck.
Yes, absolutely.
So I'm so happy to be here. I live in Colorado and I am a mom of one. I have a tiny little 8-month-old guy named Memphis, and my husband works here too. And so we're all just living our best life with our 2 dogs now, but it wasn't always that way. And I know we're definitely going to talk about that today. I have a pretty substantial, difficult background, started in like my teen years. And it sometimes felt like it was one hit after another. But now that I'm at sort of, it feels like a resting point. I don't want to say the end because we don't know, but sort of a resting point. Everything in my life is better than I could have ever imagined it would have been during all of those against all odd moments. If you told me then that I would be here now, I would probably look at you like you're crazy.
I know that feeling because sometimes when you're like right in the muck of it, like I call it, you're just like, oh my God, can I just get some breathing room? And I feel like I am never going to be able to breathe. I'm not going to be able to get through this. And then you come out the other end and you're like, whoa, I did it.
At the time, the light at the end of the tunnel had been cut off. Like it did not exist. We screwed the light bulb all the way out and it was not happening. But now it's back and we're there. And at the time, I think it was important for me to own that never feeling like it's going to end feeling. But now it's so nice to be able to know that she did get to end that and she gets to do this now. Like sometimes I view that as like a different version of me. I'm like, oh, if you only knew, but it's a part of the journey that she didn't know, or else we wouldn't have got here,
Absolutely. I always say, even with my story, I'm so grateful that I've gone through everything that I've gone through, and not things that I feel like happen for a reason, because I feel like there isn't a reason that I went through sexual abuse, or there isn't a reason that I had cancer at 18. Like there isn't a reason for it. But if I could find purpose and meaning and look back and connect those dots and see that I wouldn't be where I am now if I wouldn't have gone through that, then it's worth it.
Yeah, exactly. And no one said, hey, just so you know, this is going to make you better and it's going to be okay. Everyone tells you like it builds character. And at the time I was like, I have enough character. Like, I'm good. Thank you. All the cliches that sometimes we get told, and those things have a place for people in their healing section, but it's so hard when you're still in the sort of muck of it to hear it. But it's so true for me that like you see those things where if you took this pill, you could change all the things in your life that went wrong. And I'm like, I would never do that. Like these were super challenging, but who would I be like if I didn't know how bad it could get what I appreciate, like how good it is now. Of course, I'm not happy that they happened, like, but they were important to creating this woman.
Yeah, absolutely. So give us your first encounter with Against All Odds.
Yeah, so I would say I had a great childhood. I was like a military brat. My mom and dad are wonderful people. We traveled. It was great. When my dad got out safely, he was not hurt ever, even though he was in scary jobs. And when he retired, we moved back home to Colorado where our family is. And it started when I was in high school because we know everything when we're that young. And I met a boy and we were both so young. I was considerably younger, but I like to give us both the benefit of the doubt and not get into that hateful, blamey place. But we ended up dating through like my freshman year and his senior year, that sort of a thing. And we did end up getting pregnant and it was really crazy. And, we were scared. So like we didn't tell anybody. And there was some the pretty horrible things that ended up happening in that relationship turning kind of toxic, and it ended in us not being pregnant anymore. And I was so young, and I definitely was manipulated in that situation when I look back at it, and was made to feel the victim by that first, what turned out to be my first abusive relationship, that you never really know that they are until they're done, that you're like, ooh, the red flags were there. And I had on those rose colored I'm in love and 14 glasses. And so my family actually never found out about that baby until I was 21. And so I held that, and kids process things through anger and through acting crazy. Luckily, because they didn't know, I had to compartmentalize that. So I stayed really positive in school, and I passed my classes. I got into college. But outside of that, like, my peer relationships were not healthy. I was definitely dating more than I needed to be. I was taking it out on other people because I was hurt. Like, everyone was going to hurt. So I was definitely not my best self in those years. But in my small town where we were living, he stayed. And he made me revisit it a lot. And it turned into a couple year long, like, guilt trip thing. And it was horrible. So when I left for college, I finally got to cut off that relationship. And that was great. He's tried to pop back up a few times, and it still makes my stomach hurt even now as like a grown up, but it's found its place, but it stayed there. Right. And so as I got a little older, I started to want to maybe tell my family, but then it turns into one of those things that's like, what are they going to do about it? It's been like 10 years. And my next against all odds thing actually is what led to me telling them. My life had to hit the fan again for me to be like, you know what? I need help. So it's kind of funny to me that, like, this thing that was this horrible secret, and this huge part of my life that they didn't know about, the only reason we've healed from that is because something else went terribly wrong, which is it's just so crazy when I sit back and think about it, honestly.
So you told them at what age?
I was 21. So I had graduated. I was getting close to graduating from my undergraduate program. I had moved back into the city that's near my small town. So it's like a 40-minute drive. So I was close enough to the people I wanted to be, but far enough from the people I didn't. And I was working in an inpatient, like, psychiatric hospital. I was going to school for psychology. I had plans to enroll in grad school. And in that last semester, it was like in November of 2018, I started to get kind of sick. Like, I thought I had tweaked my back because I worked in a psych hospital, and sometimes we had like physical altercations, and I really thought I'd gotten hurt because I was getting kind of sore and kind of stiff. It was super weird. And I don't get sick. I'm like a healthy person. Like, I've never been sick in my whole life. And a month or so before that, I had been volunteering with the Red Cross at a hurricane relief. I did disaster mental health for the Red Cross. And I'd come home and I'd felt kind of gross. And I was like, did I get sick on my trip? Do I have the flu? And we couldn't figure it out. And then eventually I was just in a lot of pain. So I had taken a couple days off, and I was at my mom's house. She lives pretty rural out east. And she had gone to work, and she's like, take a bath in my big bathtub, soak your muscles. We'll go to the doctor if you don't feel better. And I ended up getting in the bathtub, and I couldn't stand up. I couldn't like push myself up. I was like, what is happening? It's like I couldn't tell my body to do it. And when I had pulled out my phone, I saw that my face had gone like slack. So I thought I had like a stroke. And so I was like, oh my God, like, how do I, so we have no self-service. I'm like, how am I going to call? So I get a hold of my like elderly grandmother who lives about 7 miles up the road. And she came over until my mom got home, and she pulled me out of the bathtub, and we made the hour drive back to town. And obviously I got admitted to the hospital. And after like weeks of literally like testing, and over those weeks, I became like almost fully like paralyzed. I was starting to lose my ability to breathe. They were talking about a ventilator. I was on high flow oxygen. I couldn't feel like my hands. I couldn't feel my feet. They were doing like brain scans to rule out tumors and cancer. And it seemed every day they were like, here's what you don't have. And you're like, cool, still can't walk. And I ended up having what's called GBS, or like Guillain-Barré syndrome. So you get it when you get like a viral infection, and your body starts to fight the virus. And after it kills the virus, your body starts to eat the myelin sheath around your nerves, and it starts attacking itself, and it thinks you are like a virus. It's this crazy autoimmune thing. Yeah. Super rare. So they said that they think when I volunteered at the hurricane, I was in the water, that I might have had like a cut or something, and I got a viral infection like in an open. We're volunteering at a hurricane. Yeah. You're cutting your hands on boxes all the time. You're in the water. And they can never say for sure. They're like, but we think this would make sense. This is why we think you got it. And they said, so the recovery is over a year. And they're like, And when it gets better, you might not get back to like 100%. And it was like just hearing that at 21 years old, I was like, I think the first thing I said was like, no. I was like, no. He was like, this is what you have. And I was like, no, I don't. I literally think that's what I said. I was like, no, I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. And my doctor was like, that's why I stayed with you, because you told me I don't have time to have that. And I'm like, oh, okay, you have it. So what are you going to do?
Wow.
So I had like a top neurologist working with me at our hospital, and I ended up going to get inpatient rehab because they were like, we could do outpatient and you could go once a week. And I was like, nope, I need something more intense. I need this over. Like, I have a life to get back to. And in that month before, I had started dating this guy. Like, the month before I got sick, we started dating. Who's now my husband.
Oh.
Yeah. So obviously also I'm like, I'm in this really great relationship, and now I'm like paralyzed. I'm like, he's not going to want to deal with this. What the heck? And so I was like, no, I need this done. So I did go through like an inpatient rehab. Oh my goodness. Yeah. And so it was crazy. After about 3 months, I think, I was walking and I was back to pretty much normal. I went back to work.
Oh my gosh.
Because I was like, nope, that's not going to work. And he's like, your mindset pushed you so hard. You were not giving it an option. He's like, you're young too. You're going to bounce. Like, but I've never seen even someone this young recover so quickly. And you literally said, I don't have time for that.
Yeah, that's powerful. I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Joe Dispenza.
It sounds so familiar. As you keep talking, I'm going to see if it rings a bell.
So he was in a bicycle accident and was in the hospital, like almost fully paralyzed. And he started to mentally reconstruct his spine. And his story is powerful, but it is the power of thought.
It is like your mindset. Like, literally, the doctor that I had, he was like, I joke because his name's Dr. House, and I was like, are you joking? Like, that's like a show. So he'd get mad because I'd always have it on when he came in, like on the TV. He's like, stop, it's not funny. But
I love that show.
He's like, when I came in to tell you, I was on shift, like he was on call or whatever, and he's like, I came to tell you what we're going to diagnose you with, and you literally told me, like, no, I don't have time for a year. Like, and I was like, I'm keeping her. Like, this mindset is something you don't see in people when you tell them you have a serious, like, debilitating illness. He's like, you didn't cry. You were like, no. And I knew that you were going to do like really great things. And so I literally contribute so much of, I knew eventually I'd get better, but so much of it, I contribute to that mindset that we say it at. We had bad days. Don't get me wrong. I had days where I was like, it's never going to end, because it was painful. Like, it's a nerve disease. And when your nerves come back online, it's not pleasant. Like, it's not like they're like, yay, I'm back at work. They're like, what was that? So it was rough, and I had hard days, but overall, I'm really proud of like the ability to keep that mindset then. So
yeah, absolutely. I think that's so powerful. And in the moment that we don't give ourselves a plan B, it's so game changing that no, this isn't going to happen. Excuse me? You said what?
Even as it went, it was crazy because like I ended up getting it. So it's really rare. It's like 1 in 100,000 or something, because I had a variant called the Miller-Fisher variant where it also eats at your optical nerves. So I didn't wear glasses before I got sick. But now when I was sick, it ate at the nerve. And so this eye is nearsighted and this eye is farsighted because of the way that it debilitated. And so I couldn't see. I was like legally blind for like 3 months. And so it felt like, when I say it was like hit, like I couldn't drive. And I was such an independent person by this point. I had what happened in high school, and I was going to dive back into like how I met my husband. It was a whole nother against all odds dramatic thing, was that my independence was so important to me at this season of my life, to have it taken again, and not by a person, by like an illness. I was like,
that you can't
it felt
control.
like at this point, the world didn't want me to have independence. Like, they're like, you need to rely on other people. And when I look back at it, it was like, you need to rely on the right people.
Yeah.
Because at that point, it brought me closer to my family and my husband. And for so long, I had let the wrong people support me. And so it was like the universe was like, you will learn how to accept help in a healthy way.
Yeah.
So help me.
Absolutely. And that's so powerful too, because my mindset coach always talks about the feather, the brick, and the Mack truck. And he probably heard it from another coach or whatever, but it talks, life always gives us like these feather touches, right? And we brush it off and we don't pay attention, and we keep brushing it off and we don't pay attention, and then we're like sitting at the dinner table and all of a sudden a brick comes through the window, and we're so focused on the hole in the window that we're not reading the note that's on the brick saying, hey, this is life testing you. Hello, I'm testing you.
Hi.
And we're focused on the hole in the window, and when we continue to focus on the hole on the window rather than the brick on the floor, the Mack truck comes and hits us and it derails us completely. And we either pay attention
Yep.
or we perish, basically. And I think that's where life was little by little giving you like these little subtle hints until, hey, you're not listening and you are meant to do so much more with your life. You need to here you go. Here's the lesson.
It's literally like spot on, because I know now, like in where I am now, it's easy for me to feel the feathers. Like I've become so much more in tune with what I feel like the world around me is trying to tell me. Whatever energy, force anyone believes in, like the messages you're getting, I feel so much more in tune with it now that I can pick up on those little ones. But it definitely took a good old couple runovers with a Mack truck. My 2018 was my Mack truck year. That's what I'm going to call it now. Because I definitely, we talked about me getting sick, and this is my brain, is I was so focused on telling you about that I actually missed the little section before. And it's not a little section, it was a big section, but in the grand scheme, I think like having my health questioned was so much scarier for me. The physical things, I've never been like a big like physical possession person, but early in 2018, I had recently left my second abusive relationship. And the reason this one was that he knew me in high school as well. And then we reconnected in college, and I ended up opening up to him about what had happened. And we were together a long time. And at first it was really good. And then it wasn't, right? That's how it goes. And it turned into one of these things where it was really held over my head that my family didn't know. And that if anyone knew, like, how would they deal with you? Like, you're so broken, you're so wrong. Like, this has messed with you so much. You're lucky I deal with you, sort of thing. Yeah. And it was a horrible place to be in. And I had finally left. And about 4 or 5 months after that, my house burned down.
Oh my God, I got chills.
We had lived together. We had bought a house, a townhouse. It was a fixer-upper. It was a foreclosure. It was a piece of garbage when we bought it. But I was 19 years old, and I was like, I'm not going to rent. I'm going to buy a house. So I bought what a 19-year-old can buy, which is a foreclosed townhouse. And we had worked for 2 years, me and my family. I say we. Didn't mean him. He didn't do anything. Me and my family worked on it, and we got it perfect. And on the 2-year anniversary of buying it, it burned to the ground.
Oh my gosh.
Our neighbor had been really negligent with a cigarette and some things and some accelerants, and there was some suspicion that it was on purpose. But they're townhouses, and when hers went up, the gas line hit and it burned down almost 20 people's homes.
Oh
yeah. And at the time, my best friends were there, and the universe was looking out for me, because if they wouldn't have been there, I don't know what I would have done. They were there visiting on a trip. My best friends my whole life. We've been friends since like second grade, first grade, whatever. And they were there, and we were in Denver, and someone called me and they said, hey, there's a fire over near your house. I'm going to drive over and look. And I'm like, oh yeah, let me know. Because I had animals. I was babysitting my mom's dog. I had 2 cats. And then he called me and he's like, hey. And I'm like, yeah, what's up? We're almost there. We're coming. Chill out. Like, we were like so oblivious. And he's like, it's your house. Like, I can see it. And I'm like, and I just like, my ear ringing. Like, it was just like the adrenaline. Wow. And you do this dumbest stuff. I remember my first phone call was to my job. Like, my parents were on vacation. Like, they were there. I called my job and I was like, I know you think I'm calling out because my friends are here, but I'm actually calling out because I don't have anything to wear because my house is on fire. And it was like the first phone call I made. Because like I don't know, like my brain. And then I called like my insurance company, and they're like, well, how bad's the damage? Like, as I'm on the phone, like the roof caved in, and I'm like, pretty bad. Like, she's like, could you send pictures? I'm like, they're not letting us in yet. She's like, is it still happening? And I'm like, yeah. She's like, honey, oh my God, hang up the phone. Like, call us later. But I just remember I made the weirdest choices, like in that, because I was just like in this space, and eventually my friends reeled me in. But they ended up, the firefighter rescued my mom's dog. He was in his little kennel near the door. So he kicked the door open, he grabbed the whole kennel, but my cats both passed away because they were upstairs. And they said that they was more of like a smoke, and they were asleep. like when we found them, they were where they used to take naps. And so they think that they just slept through it. So that was like comforting in a way. But I pretty much lost everything. I think I salvaged like maybe 2 little boxes. I saved some pictures and we just aired out the scrapbooks and stuff and sentimental things. But other than that, it was like total loss. And so that had happened. And I had taken some time off work because I was like not in a good place. And then as I went back to work, I've been there years, and they said, hey, I know you just got back, but we really need you to train this guy. And he's kind of rough. Like, I think you're going to do really good. And I'm like, oh my God, like I just got back to, me dealing with stress at the time. I did not have good tools. And so I was being kind of hateful. I was being kind of unpleasant. And that's how I met my husband. He was the rough guy I had to train.
Oh,
yeah, I had to train him at work. And he was like, hey, I'm like, I can't even deal with you today. He's like, I remember meeting you. And I was like, she's kind of mean. I like her. And so then we started hanging out as friends and we started dating in September and I got sick in November.
wow.
Yeah, it was my Mack truck year. And so that's all those things combined pushed me to start going to like my own therapy. In my head, I was like, I'm going to school to be a therapist. I don't need therapy. That is not true. Everyone needs therapy.
I agree.
We all need to go. It's okay.
I agree. I've been taking my kids since 2011. Yeah. And I've been going, and I think that everybody needs it.
I'm a huge advocate for everyone could benefit in some way. And so I started going and I met my therapist, and God bless that woman. She still deals with me occasionally. I don't go consistently. We kind of check in and stuff, because we've gone through it together. But that's what pushed me in therapy. I went and she said, well, let's do some trauma stuff because your house burning down and getting sick, that's traumatic. And in the course of doing like the EMDR therapy with her for that, I was like, well, bad things just happened to me. And she's like, well, why do you think that? And I was like, well, because of what happened when I was younger. And she's like, what happened when you were younger? And I just like
let it out,
word vomited. And it was the first time I had told like anyone besides that guy that ended up holding it over my head. And she's like, you didn't put this on anything. You didn't talk. And I was like, well, it's whatever. And she's like, no, it's not whatever. And so after that came to light, we started processing it. And she was like, and she really pushed me to tell my family. And so literally my Mack truck year made me come to terms with telling my family. And it was rough telling them. Like, it was hard because they weren't angry at me. Like, they were angry that they couldn't have helped me sooner. Like, they were like, so much makes sense now. Like, how did we miss it? And so they had some parent guilt for sure, and it's sad.
Yeah, I can relate with that a lot. I was raped when I was 16, and I kept that to myself for 3.5 years. And wow. I remember that when I finally told him after I had cancer at 18, and then it came back at 19, and I knew that the reason I had gotten cancer was because that particular person had given me the HPV virus that caused cervical cancer, and because I never said anything, I never treated anything.
Yeah.
And by the time I was 18 and got my first well woman checkup and pap smear and all the things, the doctor's like, you have cervical cancer. This isn't just anything. Yeah. And I held it in. I couldn't just be like, oh yeah, so by the way, 2 years ago, this happened. Yeah. And so I kept it in. Nobody knew. Not even my best friend. And then like at 19, when it came back, I just went through depression. Like, I knew why this was happening, and I kept it stuck in my body. And when your body goes through dis-ease, it creates disease. And it makes sense. And where did I have my disease? In the area where I was traumatized. It was just so many things that when I went through therapy and on my own, like, I was still living at my parents' house, and they didn't know. They thought that I was going to school, but I ended up having to tell my school director. Was the first person I told, the very first person I told. And it's funny how people come into your life for a reason. And she was my reason that she was in my life, that I had gone through cosmetology school and whatever, was because when I finally told her, because she was going to tell my parents that I wasn't going to school, they were paying for it, and I wasn't going to school. And I was basically going to flunk out of cosmetology school.
Yeah.
So when she told me that, she called me and told me, Maria, I'm going to have to let your family know that their money is really going nowhere. And I was like, no, let me go in and talk to you. And I went and talked to her, and I don't know what came over me, but I finally released it. And she let me cry and cry and cry. And then when it all was said and done, I look up and I'm all a mess. And I look up and she's crying with me. And I'm like, why are you crying? And she said, because a few years ago I was called because my daughter was left like by the side of a dumpster.
Oh no.
And I had to care for her, and she was sexually assaulted at a party and someone just dumped her there. And
man.
I was just like, wow. So she connected me to the place where she took her daughter.
Just like the domino effect. Like, you met the right person.
Yes.
That's so crazy.
But then it got to a point where I was able to speak up, and I finally told, at that point, my fiance, and my fiance's like, you need to tell your parents. You need to. And I was like, no, because I just knew that in that moment they wouldn't know how to react, and it was going to end up being like guilt.
Yeah.
But that guilt was going to lash out on me in a way that I wasn't prepared to handle. And it was exactly that way.
For me too, telling them made it so real. Like, if I kept it to myself, maybe it didn't happen. Like, you know, obviously it happened, but you can convince yourself, like, it can stay in its little box. But the more people, I felt at the time when I first started telling people, the more people that know, the more real this gets, and I have to revisit it. But it was rough at first because they were hurt because we're close. And I told them, like, there was nothing you could do to change it. So why would I have told you? And she's like, we don't have to fix, like, we can just be there. And so it ended up making our relationship better, like, long term. But I was so afraid of, like, it was easier for me to hold all the hurt than to spread it around to other people. Like, I was being kind of a little martyr, being like, I can do it. And it wasn't helpful. And it wasn't letting me be my best self. And it wasn't letting them be the best parents that they could be. I wasn't even giving them the opportunity. I was like filling in the blank for exactly how it was going to go without giving them like an opportunity. And it was hard, but of course it's going to be hard. Like, looking back, I know why it was hard.
Yeah.
But now that we talk about it so openly, and like my whole family knows and everyone knows I'm talking about it on a podcast.
Yeah.
Like, it's so much better now, because I gotta tell you, that Big Mac truck moment that you said happened for a reason. Because if my husband and I went through what I'll tell you about, what we went through without my family knowing, it would have been impossible.
Yeah.
If this would not have come to light and I wouldn't have processed like the loss of like my first child, I would not have been able to get through this journey with my husband to get to our son. Like, it would have been horrible. Like, I think I would have gotten through it. You get through things 24 hours in the longest day, but I wouldn't have gotten through it as well as we did.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
So we're at the point, you had the fire, you met your husband, started dating. There was this random illness.
Yeah, my disease, my GBS. So as I got better, I started to have times where I would sort of fall back. And they, at the time, told me they're relapses. And then they pulled me in. My neurologist pulled me in my new one. I transferred to a new one because he was just in the hospital, my Dr. House. And so then I met my new neurologist. And they said, if it keeps coming back, it's not GBS. It's called CIDP, which basically has a really long fancy name. It's like a chronic inflammatory demyelinating polyneuropathy, which basically means GBS that doesn't go away.
Got it.
You're going to have these infusions. You're going to do this for the rest of your life, because when you get GBS, your body eats all your immunoglobulins, which are basically like your traffic cops to tell your white blood cells this is good, this is bad. And I didn't have any, and my body wasn't making any, is what they thought what was happening. And so they said, you have a chronic illness. We don't know if you're going to get back to how it was. We don't know if you're going to stay like this. We don't know how bad it could get by the time you're older. It's just going to be a part of your life now. You're going to need these infusions. You're going to need this. I ended up getting a port placed because like the infusions are really thick. And so they were doing a lot of damage to my veins. And so I got a port. I do love this thing even now, because when I had my son, it was really nice in the hospital. So I do like my port. I was not happy because I got it a month before my wedding. And so I had this scar. but
Oh.
it's a little thing, right? And in the big picture, but I remember it being something that gave me some grief, was like having it in my wedding pictures. But I didn't let her edit it out because it's a part of me. I have to accept it. But so they told me it was chronic. And so I was on a lot of medicine. I was on like immune suppressor. I was getting regular infusions. I was getting these things. And they had said, when you guys decide to have a baby, we're going to need you to go to maternal fetal medicine, because a lot of this medicine is not, it won't like let you produce life. Like it'll like kill the baby like immediately. It causes like fetal demise or something. And so she's like, so when you guys decide to try, you need to tell us, because we're going to have to take you off some medicine. And we need to watch you really close because you might get sick, but without it, you're not going to have a baby. And we both wanted children. Like ever since that happened, I still wanted to be a mom. All I thought about was being a mom. It was like it was my everything. My first Mother's Day, even after I told my family, my god sister ended up buying like a memorial tattoo for my child I lost in high school. And so I was like, I'm going to be a mom. And so as it got closer to us wanting to do that, we went through all the tests for me. It took 6 months to wean off all my medicine. 6 or 8. It was almost a year, but at the end of it all, weaning off all my medicine, watching my symptoms, and my symptoms were holding pretty well. So that was really exciting. And they were like, that's really weird. That's cool. But I was like so focused on the baby, I didn't even think about that. I was like, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't have time for my disease right now. I want to have a baby. And so as we were getting closer, they were like, okay, like your tests are looking good. They check your follicles. They check we did an egg count. They told me when they think I'll go into menopause. It was crazy. Like we did all these fertility tests to make sure that I was in a healthy enough place. And then the last appointment, they said, do you want him to go over and do a count test? We'll just do it. And I'm like, oh, we're here. We might as well. And when his test came back, they called me. And he always puts me, because he doesn't answer the phone. I make all his doctor's appointments. I swear he's like a child sometimes. They called me. I'm driving on the highway to work. And they said, and Elle's results came in. I was like, oh, cool. Tell me about it. And she's like, well, it's 0. And I'm like, what? I'm like, it's low. And she's like, no, he doesn't have any. And I was like, on the highway. I'm like, you thought you would have been like, where are you? Is someone with you? Can you sit down? Like, I don't even remember the rest of my drive to work. And she's like, we need you guys to come in because we need to talk about our options, but nothing's going to happen right now. He doesn't have anything. And it was just,
gosh.
What? Because like we thought it could have been from a lot of things. My husband's from a foreign country. He's an immigrant from Bosnia. He came during the wars. So he has his own trauma background, against all odds background. He really does. And he hadn't had the best like medical care or whatever. And so they were like, there could be a lot of reasons, but sometimes when it gets to 0, we can't bring it back. They were like, so some medicine, it's going to be a lot. It's going to be a lot of shots. It's going to be a lot of tests. It's going to be expensive. Like sometimes we can't bring it back. They're like, sometimes we can, but sometimes we can. So you maybe look at some sperm donor things just in case, but we're going to try. Like just hearing it, like we're going to be the best parent. And at this point, all of our friends are starting to have children. Like as soon as you can't have a baby, everyone has a baby.
Yep. I know.
It's like when you're looking for a red car, you only see a red car. It was so hard. And he was on his medicine for like 3 months, and they had said they wanted us to give 6, but he was on his medicine for about 3 months, and we got pregnant. And it was so random. And it was like, we didn't even believe it. We were like not even tracking anything, because I was like, yeah, it's not going to happen. And we did, and we got pregnant, and it was amazing. And we were so excited. And we told everyone really early. Like we were like, I don't care. I'm so happy. Like we told my parents like the next day after we took the little test on the stick, like whatever. We did like the early blood tests like at 6 weeks to find out like all the genetic testing stuff. And so we found out that we were having a girl, and we were like so excited. So we did like gender reveal thing. It was really early. And we did the gender reveal that weekend, and I had found out, my husband didn't know. And so we like blew something up. We did not start a fire, but we did blow something up. We live in the country, and that's fun. And that week, when I went back to work, it was 2 days after our party. I came home and I started spotting. And when I went to the hospital, they told us we had miscarried the baby like a few weeks ago, but it was a miscarriage. 2 days after we told everybody, like we had posted it on Facebook, we did everything with our friends. So it had been 2 days, and we lost our daughter. And so our doctor said that he thinks maybe it was because he hadn't been on his medicine long enough, so like the quality wasn't there. But it was so soon after telling everyone. It was so hard to then go say, hey, and they're like, how are you feeling? And you're like, well, horrible.
Yeah.
I was at work the night that it happened, and so I had gone to the hospital. My parents came to meet me, and I told them, you should start coming, right? And so when he gets there, we were getting ready to leave. They're discharging us, like they can't do anything. And just have him look at me and have to be like, Yeah, I feel like that memory is like burning in my head because my husband's a big, huge guy. He's a cop. He's like 6'4", like he's 300 pounds, like he's massive. And to see him just crumble is like watching a building fall, And so obviously, like, for him, it was hard. For us, it was hard. For everyone, it was hard because losing a child is like nothing I would wish on anybody. Yeah. But for me, it hit so hard on my past trauma that I was like, I am never going to get like all of those negative thoughts. I was like, oh my God, this is what happens to me. Like, it was horrible. And so as we were like kind of processing that loss, we continued his treatment and stuff. And we actually got pregnant 3 months later with our son, Memphis. And it was terrifying. Yeah. Anyone who's through pregnancy after loss knows how bittersweet it is. Every day, we had a VIP membership at an ultrasound clinic, and I was there all the time. I think I had like 25 ultrasounds, and I was considered high risk with my illness because this whole time I'm off my meds. And so we're also hanging in the balance of, am I going to get sick? And we even at a certain point considered, do we even have kids? Because what if I end up in like a wheelchair or something? And how am I going to be able to care for it? Like, that's not fair. This whole time that we're trying to cope with the grief of losing our daughter, cope with the fear of my disease, like we're also still holding on to hope that we could be parents because like we're going to be awesome parents. Like we want it so bad. To have him come so soon after was like a blessing, and it was hard because then we went through like her due date while we were pregnant with him, which was like a bittersweet day. And it was just really hard. And as we started to get comfortable, I was about 7 months pregnant, and we had our baby shower. We did my maternity pictures, and 3 days later, I was in the hospital because I developed preeclampsia.
Oh my gosh!
I was like, stop! I can like laugh about it now. By the time it was like, what is my life? And he's like, we gotta write a book. I'm like, I don't want to write a book. I want to be so boring. I want a boring life. It was crazy. So I thought I had the flu, and I worked with kids. I was a behavioral specialist at the time in a preschool. It was like winter.
Yeah.
I'm like, I have a flu for sure. Like kids they sneeze right into my mouth all the time. Like,
yeah.
And so I went, and she was like, yeah, you need to go to the hospital. Your blood pressure's really high. And I was like, and I called my mom, and I made a joke, and I was like, oh, your grandson's trying to come for Christmas. Like joking. I didn't know. And he came December 23rd. At 32 weeks.
Oh my God.
In the hospital, they said, we're basically going to keep you alive. Like, we're going to monitor your blood pressure. We're going to monitor your organ function. And as soon as we cannot stabilize you, we have to do an emergency C-section. And so I had been there for over a week, and it was so boring. It was Christmas, and I was so mad. So I was like, I have so much to do. It's Christmas. I volunteer at the school. I do all this stuff. I was so mad. I was like, I don't want to be here. Obviously, I needed to be there. I wanted my son to be safe. I was so frustrated, and I was pregnant. I'm a little hormonal. And that morning, my blood pressure was fine. And then like an hour later, my mom and I decided to do like Legos. She was at the hospital with me. We were going to build Christmas Legos. We had sorted all the pieces, and I started to feel just kind of funky. So the nurse came back. My blood pressure was like 210 over 159. Oh. Like, she was like, hold on one second. Hey, so I need you to kind of moving all this stuff. Like she's trying to be calm. And then I started to get this cramping like right here. And I was going into like organ failure, basically. My kidney and my liver, because preeclampsia like pushes all this stuff back into your body and it overwhelms your system. I was like getting close to having a stroke. I was going to organ failure, and they told us at 11, get your husband here. And I had made a joke the night before that he was going to come when my husband went back to work because he works nights as a police officer. And he did. He came. My husband, I got home at 7. I called him at 11. I said, you need to get here. And he's like, that's not funny. I'm tired. And I'm like, I'm not joking. And we had him at 2.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he was 32 weeks and 2 days. And so he ended up spending like a month in the NICU, which was a whole thing in itself. And it was so scary because he's 3 pounds. He could fit like in our hands. He had his own battle too. The whole family's getting our battles in. And so when he finally came home, and it was like, we realized like, we have a baby. Like I remember my husband rolling with us back to the operating room, and I told him, oh my God, we're going to have a baby.
Yeah.
And he was, well, what did you think was going to happen? I was like, not have a baby. Like in that moment, I realized how I just truly hadn't accepted that we were here. And so then he came to the NICU, and I was like, something's going to happen. I was like waiting for the next shoe to drop, as you get.
And that's
when
so
you
hard.
It's so hard. But then he came home, and now he's this huge, chunky, happy, crazy. He's insane. He will roll and he's afraid of nothing. Like he goes out on the ranch with us. He thinks cows are like puppy. Like he doesn't even care. And now the other day I really sat back and I like looked at us, and I was like, I'm doing this new thing with my career now that he's here. I have my son. My husband is getting promoted. We're in such a good season. It made it all worth it. Some days I have to really be like, oh yeah, I went through all this because all of it brought us right here, where every day I appreciate everything in our life. So I don't even view it, oh, it was so hard and now I can relax. It was like it was so hard and now I can appreciate it.
Yeah, that's so huge. I do a class once a month with a group of friends, but it's a social group that focuses on personal development, charity work, and all that stuff. And so I did a class last night actually called Making My Life Amazing. And the overarching theme was gratitude and appreciation. And we got like these quotes that we randomly picked. And from that quote, we had to teach the rest of the people that were there like something about our story and then explain what the quote was so that it relates. And it had to do with the fact that I've stared mortality in the face so many times that I have nothing but love and appreciation for my story, for what I've gone through, and for where I'm at right now and the growth that I've gone through, and be so completely present in the moment, right this moment, that I get to do what I get to do. It's not like I have to do a podcast. No, I get to do a podcast and speak to amazing people like you and, you know, learn about stories and see the resilience and perseverance of these people that have literally gone through so much and have come out so much better in this season of their life. And it just goes to show you that it's so powerful when you find purpose and meaning in your story, in what you've gone through, and then make it about leaving a legacy rather than being the martyr or being like, woe is me, this all happened to me. How did it happen for me? Right? Because Tony Robbins
like,
says,
I did go through those things, you know, like I think I told you when we were messaging that I was like, I'm a big advocate for my life is going to be 10% of what I go through and 90% how I respond to it. And if that ratio starts to get off is when my life starts to get off track. You know, it's been hard because like he came home and he had preemie things and he has colic things. And there's trying moments because parenting is hard. I'm a big believer that parenting is hard for good parents because like for it to be hard, you have to care about doing a good job. So, but it was easy for me to be like, you know what, I'm exhausted, but I have wanted to be this exhausted for so many years. This is what I wanted. Like, I want this. And it's hard someday. Like, and we talk openly about like his sister and we share those things and like we have our families away like coping with that. And so just being able to be in a place where my whole family knows now I get to share, like you said, you get to do this podcast, like with me building the program I was telling you about, getting to branch out to let other people do it. It makes it almost like, okay, it did happen to me so that I could just like, I was given this to show that it can be dealt with.
Yeah. It's leaving your legacy.
Yeah, that's what resonated when you said that, you're leaving a legacy that helps you build the roadmap for other people to face that journey later. This is my goal, is to be like, here's what I did, so it's not as hard for you. I worked with teenagers that have trauma history, like because I was like, listen, I needed this when I was you.
Yeah.
Like, here we go. Like, and so being the person that I needed so that other people don't keep needing it.
Yeah, absolutely. So what has it all then culminated into creating what are you doing now? Tell us a little bit about that.
I was so set not to be a stay-at-home mom. When I was pregnant, I was like, I'm going back to work. I went through grad school. I didn't spend 9 years of my life. I literally, the biggest, I'm going to be a career mom. I can do it. Nope. I tried. I went back to work for 2 weeks and I was like, I can't do it. And I don't know if it was the nature of which he was born, what we went through, but I find it so hard. And so for me and my family, what was best was for me to stay home. But financially, that's not possible. The world is so expensive. And so it's culminated into, at first I started a blog, and the blog blew into an idea of coaching other moms. And so I did go through my fair share of postpartum problems just because it dredged up a lot, even having him, because then you're reminded of the ones that you don't. And I had to process some things. And also becoming a mom, there's so much pressure on what you're supposed to be like. And I don't know if you've caught on from our conversation, but I'm kind of an alternative mom. I got tattoos. And so I was like, there wasn't a place for that. I don't fit in mom group. I look weird. I don't want to be that. And so I wanted to create a place for moms like me to thrive in having that unique identity that you can dress, you can look, you can act however you want. And what matters is how you parent. And so I developed a coaching program, and it's called the Rebel Mom Blueprint. We have a free Facebook group called the Rebel Mom Revolution, and that's where we meet and we talk. And our goal is to own your authenticity and really be true to who you are so that your kids someday can be true to who they are. And we talk a lot about gentle, mindful, positive parenting and how to give them the grace that maybe you didn't have or the grace that you're going to give yourself. So really living a life for your kids by example of how to be uniquely them so that they can offer the world what they need. Because not only does that help me as a mom to have other moms in my corner and to build that village that some people aren't lucky enough to have, but it also builds a world for my son that has other kids who were raised by parents that were present and were mindful. And so that's going to make a whole new generation of beautiful humans. And I want him surrounded by that.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not just for me, like it's definitely for him.
Yeah.
And so we created this beautiful program. It works through 8 weeks. We do live coaching and we really own in on how to get rid of that mom guilt, how to get rid of that shame and own who you truly are so you can be there for your kids in the most present way. And it is beautiful. We're beta launching on Friday. When I launched the information, I was like, well, we'll see. And then the response we've gotten so far is so beautiful. We're running our beta special right now, right? And I've had a couple women already sign up and they're so rearing to go. They've been messaging me all week. Can we start early? And it's so beautiful for me to see that this thing that was born of these hardships is already, we haven't even started. And these women are like, I finally have a place.
Like that is so powerful.
Crazy. I'm like, I made something for you. Like I'm doing this, and to feel that power and to own my life back. Like this, here's what it is. I'm independent, but I'm helping others. I finally got what I wanted and in the way that I needed it because I'm being able to give it to others.
Yeah, so it's absolutely. I love that. I love it. I love the fact that you're able to then take grasp of like, listen, I'm learning as I go, but I'm going to take you along this ride and we're going to learn together and we're going to grow together. Yes, you absolutely have that background in psychology.
Yeah, the clinical background helps for sure. I used to offer parenting classes when I was working. I did therapeutic parenting. I worked in family therapy. So I have the background, and now being able to take it to that place of real connection and coaching of like here's my son, here's this, and doing shared experience is powerful in its own unique way. I love clinical stuff and it always will have my heart. But I love that in coaching, we get to connect on that. It's more of a casual level, but it's also a deeper level of that shared human experience and the growth already just in the free Facebook group where we kind of tease some information and we do little bits and pieces of the full program. The growth that those women are going, like I get calls every day, I get texts. I did the free thing that you set out this week, the journal. And I forgot that I even loved it. I've lost track of who I was and I'm finding myself. And it's life changing. It feels so much bigger than me now. And I couldn't ask for anything more.
Yeah, that's so amazing. And that's, again, like finding the purpose in our story and connecting to who you were put here to be and that higher, most best version of yourself. And it's not like this is where you're going to stay. You're going to continue to evolve, but with a grasp of who you truly are.
It's so true. The purpose is finally there. And it's amazing to be able to say like that angry person who wasn't able to move past it, who didn't accept it, who ignored it. As soon as I finally did what I was afraid to do, like it flowed in. Like the universe was like, finally. It was like I cracked an egg and it was like, here, this is what we were trying to tell you. So now I try to really hone into that intuition and trust myself. And that's stuff that I talk about all the time in my blog and in my classes is really trusting your intuition because you yourself, you know. Yeah. And the world is telling you. You just have to be willing to listen. And sometimes we're stubborn. I get it. I'm stubborn. But when I started listening, I'm like, fine. You win.
I hear you. Okay. And we sometimes try to fight it because we're like, I don't want to put in the work. I don't want to deal with all of this. Can we not, please? And so it becomes kind of like we're fighting against ourselves, but we know that we have this huge purpose and it's so powerful. I'm so excited for this new venture for you, and we're gonna definitely put all the information in the description, but I'm really, really stoked for you because I think this is going to be huge and for so many others.
I'm so glad thank you for giving me the platform. I wanted to reach as many people as possible because I'm putting it out there and I'm pushing it, But I know that there's so many people out there that haven't seen it yet, and they're not like, I need that. Like the people that are feeling lost, that maybe are feeling like they're not owning it, the people that aren't feeling confident in it, that have lost touch with that sound of what they're supposed to be hearing. I want this to get to them. That's all I want, is to help as many people as I can. So thank you for letting me sort of push in here at the end so that everyone knows it is possible, because this is the blueprint I followed, and here I am.
And you've made it, and it's possible, like, against all odds. And that is just the perfect story to completely mic drop all of the against all odds stories.
Thank
Oh
you.
my gosh, this has been such an amazing episode. Thank you for your story, for your vulnerability. I know that it's not easy. I know that it's sometimes the thing that brings us the most pain also brings us the most healing. And I feel like I've connected that with your story in so many amazing ways, that you're living the proof that it is possible, and the against all odds stories. I'm so honored that you came on today, and I'm so honored to meet you. I hope that this becomes a recurring friendship, because I feel like I connect with you so
definitely. We have so much to talk about.
Gosh, yes, absolutely. So I'm super grateful. And again, I'll put all of your information in the notes. What she said resonated with you, then reach out, because it's so powerful when we can find somebody that will speak to us the way we need to hear things, because their experience, like, connects with us. So I'm really excited for your new program, and congratulations on your release of it. And so thank you guys so very much for tuning in today. I hope you have a super fantastic rest of your day. And thank you so much for watching or listening. Peace out. Love your life.